Any opposed? Okay. I'll entertain another motion.
I'd
Mr.
like to
Shannon?
move item 9A, out-of-state overnight field trips, to item 5.
Second.
All in favor?
I'd
Any opposed? Thank you.
like to add another item, 9F, student expulsion, 2021, 2022, number 8 to the agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I have one more. I'd like to add item 9G, student expulsion, 2021, 2022, item number 10.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that covers, we got them all. Okay. And now I'd like a motion to approve the minutes from our January 13th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So that means item 5A, approval of out-of-state or overnight field trips. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we bring to you this evening a proposal for the Robotics Nationals, and we have Mr. Barry here this evening to speak to the board with some specifics about the trip and answer any questions you have before you take any action.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us tonight. So we're looking for approval for the World Robotics Championship, which is going to be held in Houston, Texas this year, April 20th. In years past, we've traveled to either St. Louis or the event was moved to Detroit. But as a result of COVID, the intention is to consolidate the program because they think there are going to be less teams participating this year. So we're seeking your approval for overnight travel for this event. We have 61 students on the robotics team, 43 of which have expressed an interest in attending. And the students do individual fundraising through the generosity of sponsorship of businesses and individuals within the town to offset their travel expenses.
Does anyone have any questions? Anyone? Mr. Darnell?
We just need a motion.
Yeah, we need a motion so we can, I can ask a question first though, can't I, as a point of order? I can ask a question. Okay, then I'm going to ask a question first. The insurance that is necessary, we were talking earlier. Could you explain, is it trip insurance or do you get individual insurance from the airline or
Yeah, so the question arose of asking us about cancellation insurance. So First Robotics, which is headquartered out of New Hampshire, is obviously looking at if in the event the entire event is canceled of a cancellation insurance. We are also as a team looking at means by which to prevent any major loss from a travel perspective. So we're finding that negotiating with the individual, the hotel we're staying at, for a cancellation fee. And then also we're seeking travel on airlines that would offer us vouchers so that in the event that we're unable to travel now, that, you know, potentially we would be able to reuse that money at a different event. So.
is anyone else? Then I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the robotic trip.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Good luck.
Good luck.
Yes, all the best. Now, wait a second. That was just, and now we have, Mrs. Cooney.
Hi, thanks for having us tonight. I'm Joy Cooney. I'm the advisor for the Future Business Leaders of America. And I have a couple of my officers here tonight, and Ryan Ogren, our vice president, would like to speak to you.
Hi, Board. I hope everyone was well. We are asking for permission to attend FBLA's National Leadership Conference, which is being held in Chicago, Illinois this year. The dates are June 28th to July 2nd. Each year, the top 4 winners of each category at the state's leadership conference have the opportunity to compete in their event at the National Leadership Conference. I'd Last year, we had 20 members of our chapter qualified to compete at nationals, but the event was unfortunately held virtually. This year, about 12 members expressed interest in attending if they qualify at the state level. This conference is held in downtown Chicago at the McCormick Center, and we will be staying on a nearby hotel. The estimated cost of this trip is about $800 to $1,000, including food. Our fundraising efforts will most likely cover about half of this cost, including the hotel and registration fee. Of course, that is depending on the number of students who win and commit to attend the conference. We will not know that information until April. This event would offer us a great experience to attend a variety of workshops and networking events. We believe this experience would also help set us apart from other applicants when we apply to colleges and for scholarships as well. We're hopeful that the conference will be held this year and would appreciate the Board of Education supporting our decision to attend. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody have questions?
Mr. O'Shannon, did you want to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the out-of-state field trip for the FBLA organization to attend the national convention.
Second.
Thank you.
Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank
Good luck.
Terrific.
Good luck, guys.
Good luck.
Yes.
Good luck.
Okay. Okay, moving right along. Communication from our student representatives, please.
Good evening, board. Good evening, everybody. I'll be starting off our report tonight. Firstly, on our agenda, some news from Southington High School. This past Monday, SHS held the annual American Legion orchestral contest, where there were 5 contestants talking about the Constitution for 8 minutes, and that night they were given a specific amendment to talk about as well. This opportunity was for possible scholarships, and our very own Ethan Solary placed 3rd. So congratulations, Ethan.
Hey, congratulations.
Our Women in Science Club, also known as WISE, held a meeting today which they called Leaving a Legacy. They invited alumni to make an appearance and discuss their experiences at Cornell, MIT, and UConn, to name a few, fueling the passion that our female students have to be successful in science fields. Yesterday ended semester 1 at the high school, and today was the beginning of new classes for many students. The new semester had caused increased excitement for the end of the year activities, especially among the senior class. Grades for semester 1 will be finalized by the end of Friday of next week. We would also like to bring attention that all juniors will be taking the NGSS Science Assessment on February 9th to 11th, I believe that more information, especially in regards to studying resources, have been posted to the morning announcement on Canvas this past week.
Good evening, board. I'm going to talk about the school report. The JFK and DePaulo Middle School Drama Club has started rehearsals for their spring production of the Broadway musical School of Rock. They are excited to be able to meet the rehearsal for a live production again this year. The shows will be March 31st, April 1st, 2nd, 7th, and 8th, all at 7 p.m. This year's performance will be held at Southington High School. A student at SHS has started an initiative called Valentines for Veterans. They are working to provide Valentines to all 189 veterans currently living at the VA, as well as living in skilled nursing facilities in Southington, Wolcott, and Bristol. This student is mainly working with the Apollo and JFK students to fulfill his goal. Meanwhile, it was Hat Day at Darnowski, where they raised money for their Polar Plunge team. Also, one of the new initiatives at Darnowski is how they are announcing strategies to help with the overall student well awareness. For example, Monday is Mindful Monday, Tuesday is Tranquility Tuesday, Wednesday is Wellness Wednesday, Fun Fact Thursday, and Funny Friday. These tips are given by our school psychologist, social worker, PE teacher, and Miss Verderam. South End has kicked off 2022 by celebrating their new December Charter champions at a virtual school assembly. They also had a food drive where they donated over 200 pounds of food to the Southington Community Center. Also, some exciting news is they have officially voted on a new school mascot. Their new school mascot is the South End Sharks.
Hello, board. I'll be ending our report with our sports news. The Southington Boys Hockey Co-op team is collecting teddy bears to donate to hospitals in memory of the St. Luke's Prep High School ice hockey player Teddy Balkand from New Canaan, who was tragically killed in an ice hockey accident earlier this month. The teddy bear donations will be collected at Friday night and Saturday afternoons home ice hockey games this weekend, weather permitting. If the games are postponed due to the forecasted storm, teddy bear donations will be accepted at future home games. Continuing on, the SHS girls basketball team goes into tonight's home game against Farmington with a perfect 11-0 record on the season. The Blue Knights boys basketball team with a 4-5 record is heading into last night's game at Simsbury. The SHS girls gymnastic team, the defending CIAC Class L in State Open Championship from the 2020 season, has opened its season with 2 consecutive victories and is scheduled to host South Windsor this weekend at a time to be determined depending on the status of the forecasted storm. The SHS wrestling team, winners of 4 consecutive matches, headed into last evening's home match with Simsbury with a 4-1 dual match record. The Grapplers finished in 3rd place at the Timberland NH Invitational this past weekend. The Blue Knights cheerleading team opens its winter competition season at Wolcott High School this Saturday at 9 a.m., weather permitting. The SHS girls and boys indoor track teams are scheduled to compete at the CCC League Championship meet this Saturday morning. If postponed, the meet will be rescheduled, weather permitting, Sunday at 5 p.m. at the Floyd Little Athletic Center in New Haven. Lastly, the Blue Knights boys swimming and diving team was off to an undefeated 3-0 meet record heading into yesterday's meet versus Conard. Thank you, board.
Thank you.
Clark,
Yes.
just to comment on the oratorical contest. I think you and Mr. Medancy were judges. I can't even tell you how proud you must have felt being there listening to those children. I ran that for a lot of years. And Mrs. Riley, I believe, is the teacher that does it now. Is she here? Hello, thank you for all your work. No one can understand what these students do and how they prepare and stand up and speak on the Bill of Rights. They are so impressive. I am so proud of the work that they do, and I know Mrs. Riley, and for many years, Mrs. Dorfler and I worked with the students, but to be able to stand up there and do what those students do, I'm sure Steve and Colleen were overwhelmed. Correct?
Yeah, I had actually commented to Mrs. Clark when we were afterward, when we talk about our vision of a graduate, and, Ethan is a good example of that, in the 21st century skills, the communication skills and the content knowledge that they displayed, and some with preparation, but some really being put on the spot. There's the prepared topic and there's the assigned topic, and the art of communication that they demonstrated sets them up for definite success beyond their time at Southington High School.
We thank the American Legion for sponsoring that, and it's too bad that more people couldn't see it because it is very impressive, very impressive. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Okay. Moving along. You took away my thunder. I just want to share that with you, Mrs. Carmody, because I was going to talk
I'm
about
very
that,
sorry.
but no.
I'm
No.
sorry, but
That's okay.
that's dear to my heart. Very
Comments
dear to
from
my
the
heart.
public. Would anyone like to speak?
Hi, my name is Katie Wade, 39 Madeline Lane. I know it's budget time for our town, and I wanted to talk about some things that have come up a lot in here, like the issue with HVAC in our schools. Southington received federal funds that could have been used toward just this kind of project. And I understand that while the Board of Ed has line item control over their budget, many of the district's costs are fixed contractual obligations.
Katie, can I just interrupt you for just a moment? Could you give your name and address, please?
I did.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't catch it. I'm sorry. I know who you are.
Katie Wade, 39.
Ah, okay.
Mullen Lane,
I missed
for
it. I'm
Mrs.
sorry.
Clark specifically.
My apologies, Katie.
I understand that while the Board of Ed has line item control over their budget, many of the district's costs are fixed contractual obligations, and the overall amount of funding for our schools comes from the town council. It's important you hear our priorities, but we know this board can't address many of the issues brought before you if you don't have the money to do it. The town of Southington received over $4 million in outside money for our schools. That was money for new HVAC systems, money to help catch kids up academically, and money for temporary counselors to help kids dealing with quarantines and masking and issues like parental job losses. These are all topics I've heard addressed by others in this room. Instead of seeing the potential positive impact, the town council used that money to replace town money and cover the fixed costs. It feels short-sighted. A councilman said at a public forum that he regretted not cutting more money from our kids' school budget. But what is it exactly that our kids can do without? I honestly don't doubt that all council members want what is best for our town, and maybe town council does need to be hearing these concerns from families so they can be made aware. I do wonder what choosing not to invest in our schools does to Southington at large. For families of school-aged children, this is the heart of our community, but the quality of our schools affects all homeowners and taxpayers. Communities with good schools have lower crime rates, they retain home values, and I think we can all take pride in the success of our students because we all play a part in it. So we can be proud of having some of the lowest per pupil spending in the state, but will our kids be able to remain competitive when applying for opportunities after graduation if we can't afford to retain our experienced teachers or attract the people we need to fill important educational and administrative roles, if we can't provide our kids with safe school buildings? Southington teachers and administrators and the support staff really do amazing work. Are our kids going to be able to keep them? Are our kids not worth the same investments as students in Cheshire or Wallingford? Thanks for your attention.
Good evening. My name is Todd Ritchie of Chesterwood Terrace. My 5-year-old son and I are a little bit disappointed that no one from the Board of Education contacted us following the last meeting where we presented to the board the do-it-yourself filtration units we assembled. The vice chair mentioned at the last meeting that he is interested in the idea of these inexpensive classroom filtration units, air filtration units. However, he mentioned needing more information about them, including operation and maintenance costs and if they're a potential fire hazard. That's understandable, but let me ask this. Which is more likely to be a potential fire hazard? The 60-year-old commercial fans operating in the 60-year-old obsolete heating and ventilation units in the classrooms in Kelly and Flanders elementary schools, or a brand new circulating fan similar to the fans that are already used in these classrooms that is certified to meet current electrical safety listing testing laboratory standards for electrical testing and safety? Not to mention that these units have been assembled and donated to schools and towns by the Yukon School of Nursing and Medicine, apparently without major concerns like these, in fact, with continued demand. It's school budget season, and a lot has been presented about the proposed school budget so far, such as, for example, 20-plus-year-old roofs that need to be replaced because they are at their end of their useful life, athletic fields that need to be upgraded because they are outdated by conference standards by 7 years, a synthetic field that needs a replacement because it's 10 years old, bleachers that should be replaced because spectator grandparents have difficulty navigating them. These are all important issues that should be addressed in due course. But surprisingly, or perhaps not surprisingly, there has been virtually no discussion about any short-term or long-term improvements to the town's oldest unimproved schools that house many of our youngest students and have 60 and 70-year-old heating and ventilation systems. The useful lifespans of the HVAC systems in these schools are not 60 to 70 years, more like 20. The current proposed school district budget is around $105 million, an increase of about 4% over last year's budget, and includes no major projects and equipment. 82% of the budget is comprised of salaries and benefit-related costs, which is understandable, with the remainder being operational and maintenance costs, special projects, etc. Out of a $105 million budget, do not appear to be any investments in indoor air quality improvements, and I could not find the budget line for the funding allocated to implementation of the district's indoor air quality monitoring program. As some of you may recall, in winter 2020, Governor Lamont's administration surveyed all Connecticut schools to assess the ventilation systems and the presence of contaminants. All but 11 districts responded. Southington did respond and affirmed that an indoor air quality program exists for each of our schools and that funding is sufficient for these programs. Perhaps I'm missing where the funding for where these indoor air quality programs is listed in the proposed budget. I know that there have been ongoing studies and discussions regarding the future of Flanders, Kelly, and Darnowski schools based on future enrollment projections, state level funding levels, constructability, and the potential need for redistricting. At this point, even on an aggressive planning, design, bidding, and construction schedule, while balancing the fiscal impact to taxpayers, all these schools will likely not be renovated or replaced within the next 10 years, at which time we may be referring to these schools as having 70 and 80-year-old HVAC systems while we are still replacing roofs, upgrading athletic fields, replacing the synthetic turf field for the second time, and replacing more bleachers. I find it intriguing that our town can put to referendum a vote for a new $17 million library to replace our 47-year-old library, which I did support and vote for, but that we are still struggling to establish a plan and bring to referendum a vote to invest in necessary upgrades and improvements to our oldest unimproved schools, inequitably impacting the learning environment and opportunities of many of our youngest students. Long-term plans for Darnowski, Flanders, and Kelly schools need to be finalized and executed now without further delay, as they are decades overdue and will take at least another decade to fully implement. In the meantime, short-term plans for these schools must be developed to address their obsolete HVAC systems and the resulting inferior air quality in these schools compared to the other modernized schools in our district. Thank you.
Steve Balszewski, 191 Queen Street. For months now, at least 6, people have been asking you to take action on critical race theory. When Mr. Oshana identified 6 tenets of CRT, everyone agreed that those 6 things should not be allowed in the classroom. That was in October. That was 3 months ago. In that time, there has been no action by the board. You have been asked for months to vote, the 9 of you, to formally prohibit those 6 doctrines from being taught in this town. And quick recap, those 6 doctrines being that America is irredeemably racist, that all white people are racist, that white people are oppressors, that non-white people are victims, that capitalism is racist, and that the only solution to past discrimination is present discrimination. All of you are on the record saying that those things should not be in the schools. One would think that unanimous agreement would translate into a unanimous vote, and yet there has been no vote. The board has not voted on prohibiting those 6 specific items. So how is it possible that all of you agree and yet there's no action? Total agreement and no action. It creates the impression that you don't all agree. It creates the impression that you either support this or lack the will to do anything about it. Some of you are still denying that CRT is present in Southington. even after months of parents coming to meetings and telling you what their kids are being subjected to. After a high school student coming to you with specific CRT materials in his classroom. But even for those of you who are still denying it, so what? Even if it was true that it's not in Southington, it is, and examples have been brought to you. But even if it wasn't in Southington yet, why should that stop you from taking preventative action and barring it from ever coming here? Falsely denying that CRT is not present in the school doesn't work as an excuse to avoid action. It's unfortunate that we still have to talk about this. All the months you've refused to take action are months that kids in the town have been indoctrinated with CRT. And since you decided not to put it on the agenda today, kids will still be indoctrinated into February at least. You are responsible for CRT being in the schools. It is your refusal to act that enables rogue teachers to put this hatred in class plans. So do something before people start to question whether you're telling the truth when you say CRT has no place here. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tyler Young from Berkeley Avenue. In recent weeks, so much truth has finally been making its way to the surface, and the narrative for which all of these reckless mandates are based on is crumbling. Dr. Fauci and the CDC director now admit there is a difference between being hospitalized with and because of COVID. The New York Health Commissioner admits to inflating the number of childhood cases in order to persuade parents to vaccinate their children. The New York Supreme Court has ruled mask mandates to be unconstitutional. The CDC has reported that 75% of people who have been hospitalized with COVID have had 4 or more comorbidities, which means they were already very sickly. The CDC and Dr. Wen recently stated that cloth masks are little more than facial decorations and that there is no place for them in the light of the new variants. They go on to say they don't recommend N95 masks either because they are, and I quote, very hard to tolerate, they make it very difficult to breathe, and because people won't wear them properly, rendering them ineffective. But then, because they're banking on our continued stupidity and blind compliance, they go back to recommending the cloth facial decorations. The manufacturers of N95 masks have stated that they are not sized for children and therefore not recommended. They are also not recommended for men with facial hair as you are not able to get a proper sealed fit. So why are we still mandating these masks? The jig's up. We all know that these mandates are just in place because of the ESSER funds our state superintendents have signed for. We all see the strings attached to this money, and by accepting these funds, you have quite literally put a price on our children's health and well-being. The recent changes to school COVID guidelines with the screen and stay as well as the 5-day quarantine have poked a hole in the narrative of the asymptomatic spread. And while I welcome the loosening of the not-so-invisible chains you've allowed to be placed on our children, I do have to question why a vaccinated child does not have to abide by the same rules as an unvaccinated child, when both can still get and spread the virus equally. Why are you continuing to allow the shaming and the discrimination against unvaccinated children? If the vaccine and mask mandates have worked, we would have lower case numbers. Vaccine clinics and testing should not be permitted on any school property because medical interventions, including tests and vaccines, have no place in schools. I want to know why you are continuing to go along with this charade. I know that COVID and all of its mandates have caused a great divide in our homes, in our workplaces, and in our community. But I would like to remind you all tonight that you too are only ever one jab away from being excluded from society, and that the brave parents that show up week after week are fighting for you and your families as well, not just our own. And you will never be able to comply your way out of tyranny. So please, now that you know better, do better.
Is there anyone else?
Susan Zabahanski, Plantsville. For 5 months now, we've been coming to these Board of Ed meetings. Parents are tired of doing it. We've asked you guys, and we were made campaign promises by many, that you would send a message to Hartford that we want local control. I don't see why anyone on this board would not want local control. That's the job you were all elected to do. So it doesn't make sense to me that you wouldn't want to send a message to Hartford to say that we want to have control of the policies and procedures in place for COVID-19 for the Southington School District. It just doesn't make any sense to me that no one's on board with that. And we were made promises by many of you sitting up there that that would occur upon your election. So we're going to remember that in 2 years. As far as the school budget is concerned, I'd like to correct a common misnomer when people say we cut the budget. The budget was never cut. There was just not as big an increase given as was requested. So that is something that people should be careful with their wording when they bring it up. Our enrollment in Southington is going down, and I'm going to guess if we continue with these mandates that will continue to happen. I know my daughter's school, which has mask choice in place, has 30 new kids enrolled this year, and we're seeing people pull their kids out because of the mandates that are happening in Hartford. We're here to support you as your constituents, to send you, to help you send that message to Hartford. We're here to help you in any way that we can. But it's frustrating when we come for 5 months in a row and we don't hear anyone here fighting for our kids, and their mental health is decreasing. I have some testimony from some teachers in town. I don't know how much time I'll have to even get to any of them, but I'll certainly, of course, teachers want to remain anonymous. It's sad that they don't want to speak out for fear of being ostracized or losing their jobs. But I'm just going to try and get into some of them if I can. The first one, kids are not okay, she wrote. I have been an OT in a public school for 22 years, and kids are not okay. I've seen an increase in rude, disrespectful, and defiant behaviors in the general population of students. Many students are destroying school property. I service students with special needs, and I'm hearing the following from them. Kids with hearing impairments report they have a difficult time hearing the teacher and their peers. One student said, "I can't hear the teacher because of the stupid mask." Kids with intensive needs who are unable to communicate verbally become upset, and in some cases self-injurious when told to pull their mask up over their nose. Most wear them on their chin, but there are many adults telling them constantly to pull it up. Some kids are so fearful of COVID that they do not want to be in school because they think they could get sick and die. I have students who are clearly struggling to breathe but insist on wearing 2 masks or a KN95 mask due to fear. Parents have shared that their children are anxious and don't want to be in school with a mask, and that it is affecting their sleep behavior and bowels. One boy said, the principal says the Pledge of Allegiance every morning and ends with liberty and justice for all. He said there is no liberty and no justice in this school. I asked him why he thought that, and his reply was that they are forcing us to wear a mask. The kid is 10, much more insightful than most adults I know. Another student complained daily that it was too hard to breathe. Upon further investigation, it turns out the kid has a breathing obstruction and legitimately can't breathe easily and is scheduled for surgery. He is denied a mask exemption. As a result, the family moved out of state. Lots of kids are now more than a year behind academically. This is all anecdotal, but it's easy to see that the kids are not doing well. I see teachers being unkind to students when they do not have their mask on properly, which is creating animosity for both teachers and students. School is a very unhealthy environment, in my opinion. Let's see if I can get to this one. A teacher's perspective. I'm a dual certified Connecticut teacher who works in the state for about 15 years. I currently teach high school and taught in Hartford for almost 10 years prior. I have appreciated my work with the Southington Department and the support I've received from various programs and positions. All this being said, I can no longer stay silent about my concerns with the continuation of mask mandates for children. As teachers, we spend years studying developmental psychology, learning the importance of facial expression, socialization, modeling, language acquisition, and so much more.
Thank you. Okay. I was had trouble stopping mine.
Hello, good evening. Michael Krasansky, 27 Hitching Post Drive. So start off, thank you for your service, serving the town, putting your time in, your personal time to help the community. First, I agree with Susan Zabahanski and Tyler, who were speaking about the mandates and the masks. So everything they said, I echo. We're 2 years into the pandemic and flattening the curve. Governor Lamont's emergency powers are almost the same length. I think they started March of 2020. So the question is, like, when does this all end? The pandemic is over. I'm not saying people aren't getting COVID, but this emergency is over. Vaccination's been available for a long time. Anyone can get vaccinated if they want. The Omicron variant, the predominant variant of COVID, is much weaker. And Southington is a conservative Republican town, as evidenced by the last elections. I think in every town council, position, the Republican dominant candidates, the lowest Republican candidate got more votes than the top Democrat candidate. I'm not slandering or slamming anyone, but that's the truth. Same thing happened on the Board of Ed. So there was clearly a proclamation from Southington voters, as evidenced by their vote patterns, that they preferred a Republican position, which aligns with, not backing these mandates and these emergency powers that were put in place by the Democratic Party and Governor Lamont in Connecticut. So the town council, and I know you're not the town council, but we'll talk about that. They've done proclamations in the past against tolls, against juvenile crime. Maybe that's not their jurisdiction. They wanted to send a message to the government that here is where we stand as a community against these things. Okay. We need the Board of Ed to do a proclamation. I'm not an expert in how state education works. I know there's a state Board of Education. Whoever these authorities are that we can send a message to, we should be sending a message to, because we in Southington voted for you to be representing us on the Board of Ed. So we need a message sent to the state, a letter or proclamation that the Governor Lamont's emergency powers need to end. It will get attention. Other towns will follow. We can be at the forefront against this. Take a stand for us, Southington citizens. It's the right thing to do. And finally, just an analogy with this mask thing. My kids play soccer at a Farmington Sports Arena, and they have a mask rule that, you should wear a mask when you go in. And I have actually 4 kids playing at FSA right now. And guess what? A lot of the people aren't wearing masks. They're down. How can you play soccer like with a mask over your face? So they play with a mask down. No one says anything. And it's very selective. I'll go in and I don't have a mask on. They'll yell at me, but there's kids, there's other people, not having masks on. It just doesn't make any sense. So what I did at the most recent soccer game was I said, I'm not going to stand for it, which is what I'm saying to you. Don't stand for it. I said, okay, well, if you're going to push that on me, I'm bringing a bag of pretzel rods to the game, and I'll eat pretzel rods. And I ate pretzel rods through 2 games, 2 hours, so I wouldn't have my mask on. Okay? So that's what I did. So I'm taking a stand. And I ask you to do the same thing, that you take a stand to the state and let them know how Southington feels, the citizens, against these, drastic unnecessary mandates, and particularly in light of, they say follow the science. Well, I am following the science. I'm seeing all these things that were pushing us were not accurate, cloth masks being not effective. So why we're still going along with this and not standing up to it, I don't fully understand that. And I'm done with it. And I'm hoping you'll send a message on behalf of me and similar-minded people in Southington. So thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Kathleen Riley, and I live at 58 Dora Lane. And I have one student that is currently enrolled in an elementary school in town and another that will be entering next year. I have come to speak with you regarding the recent request that you represent the parents and voters in Hartford regarding the mask mandates currently at our schools. The previous requests made at this podium, however, do not represent our entire town. There is a quiet portion of parents who are happy with the status of the mask mandates. There are 10 or so parents here, most meetings, but where are all the other parents? They're at home, like I usually am, week after week, watching online or taking care of their families or whatever they're doing. Why are they at home? Because they're satisfied with how the Board of Ed has handled the safety of our children at such a precarious time. During the last 2 years, my son has worn a mask at school and in every other public place we have gone. Although this time has had a real and consequential influence on all of our children, masks are really not the reason for that. My son does not feel stressed or burdened by wearing a mask. He doesn't feel the weight of other people's health on his shoulders because of the way we couched it for him as his parents. He wears a mask to help others, like holding a door or giving food to the food pantry. He's helping his community by wearing a mask. While wearing a mask, my son has been able to switch schools and make new friends. While wearing a mask, my son has learned how to add double-digit numbers, and he's accelerated through 5 different reading levels. While wearing a mask, my son has been able to learn about and appreciate different cultures in a productive and thought-provoking way. Perhaps this is a time where my son will look back and think, wow, that was super weird. But with the masks and protocols you put in place and continue to enforce, at least we know that he, myself, and our elderly family members will be here safely to have that memory. We are united as parents in that we all want what's best for our children. That means being together in person in school with age-appropriate peers. So I thank you all now for what you have done and what you will continue to do for all the parents in Southington. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public who would like to speak? Okay, moving along then. Board members. Board members.
I'd like to make a comment and bring up something that I think the public has a desire to hear and would maybe help add some transparency to the budget process that we're currently engaged in, and we have been for a couple months now. Obviously, there's a lot of work that goes into it, and as we've seen from public comment, I think there's an understanding that the town council ultimately votes and approves what we get as a district for dollars. Superintendent, I look to you and just, because we have this opportunity right now, things that we all take for granted as board members, because we're involved in the process. Maybe in this forum, if you could just make a comment just to help the public and our townspeople understand the process a little better. There was one public comment, and I forget the gentleman's name, I apologize, in regard to a survey by the governor's office in 2020 in regards to an air quality management program. And maybe that's something that Mr. Romano can speak on. I'd like to know our current efforts in that area, specifically as they pertain to Kelly and Flanders. And when you're replying or commenting on that, maybe you can tie in our district's capital project strategy. Because there was another public comment about why do we have nothing earmarked in our budget for capital projects. So if you can tie your response into our capital project strategy over the next 2 years, specifically as we wait for results of our consulting study to determine school enrollment, and also at the state level as we wait to hear what our reimbursement rate is going to be on new school construction.
I was going to, we can have that as an agenda item. I don't see that would be a problem.
Correct.
That those, we could address it. I mean, it's not on our agenda for this evening, but we can have that at a subsequent meeting. We can talk about all of that.
Well, then I will
Okay.
hereby make a motion.
You
Sure.
don't have to make a motion.
So, in terms of details that you asked for, we certainly can bring that to a future meeting and share that, and have a public conversation about that. Some of the balcony level conversations that we've had through the budget workshops, I can certainly speak to tonight when we get to the review and adoption of the budget.
Perfect, and I think that's what I'm looking for, and I think that's what the public would like to hear as well.
Sure.
Okay. Mr. Petrovsky?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is an exceptionally bittersweet time to be sitting on this Board of Education. Last week, we had an opportunity to discuss this budget of Southington's crown jewel. It spurred great conversation amongst the veteran and junior members of this board alike. I am proud to be serving on this board and even more proud to be discussing a fair and a representative budget of the very values this town has instilled in myself. I am proud that this budget reflects the importance of the people in education, that there is eagerness in continuing to move our students forward and help those that need to catch up. I am proud that this budget reflects the importance of funding our students in their endeavors from all of their wonderful classes, existing and new, to the extracurricular activities that bring the teaching and studies to life. From sports to band to robotics, we are truly collaborating with the families of this town to help our students find their niche and grow. I thank every taxpayer, family member, and student for providing the reason that we are here, to assist in the making of tomorrow's leaders, teachers, inventors, tradesmen, and every passion in between. I would say that we do a damn good job in this town. We have our phenomenal administrative team in place to leverage needs and wants and to execute excellent education while being mindful of spending. This leads me to the better part of my membership to this board. Here we are almost 2 years later, having gone through the most concerning health crisis in decades. We have watched the best in humanity, but we have witnessed the worst. We've seen people pull together to provide help and respite in the community, and we watch neighbors and families scold one another based on what we find to be true and honest belief. Going back to what I said earlier, Southington knows how to provide for our students. Southington knows how to provide great services to our taxpayers. Why is it that Southington is unable to manage its own health and wellness? I read more than most the benefits of mitigation techniques, the harm of mitigation techniques, and the stone cold data that gets collected. In doing that, it is abhorrently clear that this 2-year circumstance will live on in our community as a spectrum of emotion for years to come. From those seemingly unaffected to elementary age kids that are afraid to give an elderly family member an affectionate hug for fear of harming them. This is the reality, regardless of opinion. And that being said, it is my opinion that our community has weathered the storm. I believe that the current state of affairs does not provide sufficient grounds to allow for continuation of emergency power by this governor. After the worst spike since last January, with the calming of the waters, that same person wishes to continue the precedence of emergency so that this state does not operate as it was intended with 3 properly functioning branches of government. This is unacceptable. This affects the education environment. What makes it relevant to this board and to the students we create curriculum and policy for is that every decision made for schools has originated from the governor and his panel of chosen individuals. It hasn't been this Board of Education. Not elected, but appointed position holders. Not once has our town been able to mitigate and flex as needed without following mandates and the rules of law that our legislators had no definitive vote in. This was unacceptable in the This was acceptable in the beginning of this emergency. One can argue that it was acceptable 12 months in. But 2 years and yet another spike of infection, to dream that this is an acceptable way of doing the business of the people is beyond me. One of my favorite movie quotes that feels more true every day: compromise where you can. Where you can't, don't. Even if everyone is telling you that something wrong is something right. Even if the whole world is telling you to move, it is your duty to plant yourself like a tree, look them in the eye, and say, no, you move. I make a motion to add to this agenda where appropriate to ask for a resolution by this Board of Education. A resolution that is apolitical in nature and reflects the qualities of this town, that we can and will effectively manage the business of our town. Simply said, on this day, the town of Southington thanks the service of this Governor Lamont for the work that he has performed during the health emergency, but respectfully asks that he does not seek continuation of emergency power and therefore allow government to return to function as intended by our Constitution. That localities be restored to their ability to manage health, education, and daily operations under the guidance of law set forth by the legislative branch, executive branch, and judicial branch. That discretion of health services be interpreted at the local level to best serve this community and its needs. Thank you.
So you made a motion.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
So just to be clear, what are we exactly voting on? We don't have a resolution in front of us, right? Are we voting to create a resolution? Just, we don't know the language yet?
I think Joe specifically said to add an agenda item. So by that, I believe it would be up for discussion to create a resolution, correct?
Create a resolution, correct.
You need a 2/3 vote to add it to the agenda.
Yep.
To add it to the agenda, I second.
Okay.
Aye.
Is there any other discussion?
Is there any other discussion on this? Could you please poll the board?
Mrs. Anastasio,
Yes.
Mr. Balszewski,
Yes.
Mrs. Carmody,
No.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Mr. Charnowski,
Yes.
Mr. Deranowski,
No.
Mr. Oshana,
No.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
So that becomes for the agenda item, because we added 12.
That would be,
It was the retired teacher subpay was last item, was at 12G.
it's not 12. It is,
Nine.
Sorry,
9E
So
is
now
the.
Well, we had the 2 expulsions.
yeah, we have the,
9G,
that would be 9H.
9H, okay.
Yes? Yes, okay. Okay. Anyone else have from the board have any comments? I would just like to reiterate what Mrs. Carmody, she stole my thunder before regarding the oratory contest. That was my first time doing it, and I was absolutely amazed. I was amazed at the poise that I saw on the stage. I was amazed at the knowledge, the things that I learned, and I had a minor in history, and I just wish more of the community could have seen what I saw the other night. It was absolutely amazing. So I thank you, students, for your work. Ethan, you were phenomenal.
Thank you.
It was a wonderful evening. Okay. Next to the administration.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few updates. A lot of great news and things happening in the district worth sharing. We received notification after the last meeting. I know you may recall me mentioning that the Southington High School was identified as a top 10 school for the course offerings in the UConn ECE programs. And we've also just been recently notified through the College Board that we are recognized as one of the top 2021 AP Computer Science Female Diversity Awards. So it is for the school's efforts and the students' efforts in enrolling female science students. It acknowledges 1,020 schools in the nation, but knowing that we have 300 or so alone in Connecticut, it just shows you that across the nation, it's not an honor bestowed upon many high schools. So I think that's a nice accolade for them and well-deserved. Additionally, Southington High School is only one of 58 districts out of 169 who is participating in recognizing, as many of you may recall from curriculum instruction years back, our students with the seal of biliteracy on their high school transcripts. And we are one of only 58 districts for that, and that's a number that continues to grow annually and started in 17-18. So a huge credit to both the EL department and the World Language department at the high school for their efforts in bringing our students to those levels of proficiency. That is not an easy seal to earn, but is certainly an honor bestowed upon students who do. Informational, we got our devices, and now the College Board is shifting the SAT to completely online and digital. So thankfully we have a device for each student. Their goal is to be completely online for all students by 2024, but they're going to be transitioning to that starting sooner than later. So the days of the handwritten bubble tests and essay tests where your hand is cramping up after a couple hours may be a thing of the past. Thanks to Kathy O'Hara, our nursing supervisor. I know you had heard about the recent events and tragic events at a Hartford public school regarding this student who had passed recently, and her efforts, we received a grant which awarded us Narcan for our high school, middle schools, and Karen Smith Academy, which will also be, upon the Narcan expiration date, replenished by this program from Middletown, who provided it. And you may recall we do have Narcan in our schools. We always have. This was a replenishment and a promise to continue having it on site should we ever be faced with such a crisis that they were faced with for that poor student in Hartford. So our thoughts with that family. And then lastly, the DECA recognition. They were recognized as a DECA chapter campaign program for the 22-23 school year. It's another honor award bestowed upon them where they basically highlight DECA programs that existed within their organization, state and national, for their accomplishments. And I know DECA has come before us many times at board meetings and continues to be a model of excellence as a program at the high school. And that's all I have this evening.
Thank you. Moving along, committee reports. Mr. Balszewski.
Thank you. Steal your paper. Oh no, this is never mind.
Wrong one. Steal that one.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so in our meeting, we talked about the senior capstone experience. Mr. Pepe offered context for the first presentation. The capstone experience spans freshman through junior year and culminates during the first half of a student's senior year. Therefore, seniors need separate discussion points during the monthly allotted capstone time. This need created another opportunity for STEPS and SHS to collaborate, which is always a great thing. Ms. DeSenza provided an overview of the senior capstone experience with 5 modules as part of What's Next, the program of the Jordan Porco Foundation. Students will understand what distress looks like for them and develop or strengthen an internal locus of control. Self-advocacy, resilience, coping, help-seeking, time management are the core concepts of this program. Upon approval, Mrs. Albanese will send an introductory letter to senior class families. Kindergarten science units, Mrs. Apone and Ms. O'Neill return to present the 3 kindergarten units that will encompass the curriculum going forward. Each unit contains a driving question. Unit 1, waiting for weather. Unit 2, mystery class pet. And 3, push-pull play. The units include resources from correct videos and slides, etc., are interdisciplinary, and are very teacher-friendly. Let's see, we did a review of the implicit bias videos. Mr. Pepe presented the implicit bias videos referenced during public comment during the November Board of Education meeting. Conversation between members ensued around if there is a more effective manner to teach implicit bias. Committee members requested enrollment data, the course description, and the follow-up talking points suggested in the curriculum, and the potential to invite the teacher to a future meeting was considered. Mr. Pepe shared a list of proposed dates. We mapped out our next four meetings on Fridays of each month. And aside from that, it was a great meeting. I don't know if anybody, Sean or Jesper or Mrs. Carmody, wanted to add anything.
No, it's a good meeting.
It was good.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Town government communications. I just have one thing. We had it's now called the meeting of the chairs, last week with, town council, Board of Ed, Board of Finance, Planning and Zoning, as well as Mr. Shota and Mr. Medancy. And it was, I thought it was a good meeting just to hear what's going on within the community, what's going on in town, because honestly, we don't get a chance to just sit down and talk about what plans are for each of the boards and councils. So we're going to be finding out on the 31st, I believe it was, January 31st, what the grand list is, and in February 9th, the governor's budget. Infrastructure bill we will hear in June. So those were some of the things that we heard at our meeting, but it was a good first meeting and I'm looking forward to our subsequent ones. Did you want to add anything to that, Mr. Medancy?
No, you covered it.
Okay. So then, the next item on old business is a capital improvement plan for 2022-23 to 2026-27. Did you want to speak on that, Mr. Medancy?
Sure. So if you recall at the last meeting, we provided an update when the town manager was present about shifting. And so all you have in a revised capital improvement plan tonight is a shift from the projects that were originally designated as 23 for referendum up to 22, and the projects that were designated as 22 projects over to 23. I'd like to thank Ms. Hill for her work on revising the capital improvement plan, having it in time for this evening. This allows us, since our next board meeting is after the town manager's budget presentation, this allows him to utilize these numbers as part of his budget presentation on February 18th, I believe it is. As we talked about the last meeting, we will have an in-depth discussion about the scope of the 2022 projects at the February board meeting.
Any questions? Do I hear a motion?
Yeah, move to approve the capital improvement plan as submitted.
Second.
Okay, any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Okay, next item, the waiting proposal. Mr. Williams, I believe that's yours. The SHS waiting proposal, the motion?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, move to approve the SHS waiting proposal
Okay,
as proposed, yeah.
okay,
Second.
okay. Any questions or comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? No. Okay. You also have the next, wait a second, who's got this? I'm sorry, Mr. William, I'm sorry, I was calling you. It was actually Mr. Balszewski.
Yes, it was.
I'm sorry. I've got all these in front of me. That's you, your curriculum. So you've got the next one, sir.
All right, so 8D, correct?
Yes,
That's where
yes,
we're at?
8D.
Move to approve the SHS World Language New Course Proposal, Classical Mythology, ECE, or Early College Experience, as recommended by the Curriculum and Instruction Committee.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. You have the next one.
Yep. Move to approve the SHS English Course Proposal, English 4, as recommended by the Curriculum and Instruction Committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm opposed.
You are? Okay.
Move to approve the Science Grade 3 unit, Migrating Monarchs, as recommended by the Curriculum and Instruction Committee.
Have a second?
Second.
It's like pulling teeth today, huh, guys?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Move to approve the Science Grade 4 unit, Mimicking the Natural World,
Second.
as recommended by the Curriculum and Instruction Committee. Doesn't say as, though.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next.
Move to approve the SHS textbook proposal, AP Biology, as recommended by the Curriculum and Instruction Committee.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now, Williams, you have the policies.
Got it.
Okay.
Move to approve the alcohol and drug use policy revision as proposed by the Policy and Personnel Committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next policy.
Move to approve the drugs, alcohol, and tobacco policy revision as proposed by the Policy and Personnel Committee.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Williams?
Move to approve the grade reporting policy revision as proposed by the Policy and Personnel Committee.
Have a second? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
And last, move to approve time, place, notification of meetings policy revision as proposed by the Policy and Personnel Committee.
Second?
Okay, Kristen,
Yes.
we had a discussion on that regarding the sign-in book. I know it's not part of this. Is that something that will be implemented at some point?
Was that part of the,
It was part of the discussion. It's not actually.
It's not actually,
It's
it's
not
not written into
Yeah,
the
it's not
policy.
codified.
it's not written in the policy, but is it part of the, is there a regulation associated with that?
It was part of the committee discussion.
Okay.
It was a board level discussion when it was first introduced as well, but there wasn't a direction to alter the policy as presented. I believe it can be a practice adopted by the board. It doesn't need to be written within the policy itself.
It does need to?
It does not.
Oh, it does not. So it just has to be a
If we
practice?
If it's something that we decide we'd like to implement.
Okay.
It's there.
In the past, it's always been at the discretion of the chair. And, there's a proviso that at any given time within the, if someone was to come in late and not able to sign in, they would be also allowed the action to speak, even though they're not in the book.
So how does,
We could discuss it.
Yeah,
later,
I
but-
know. I mean, if you as a committee bring it back and say, this is why we want to have, we have the sign-in sheet that they have, but as far as what did the chair do with the book? Or was it just,
Well, what it does, it sets a list of people, your name is written, that person now has the floor.
okay,
They have the podium. Okay, so it's a sense of putting things in order. There should be the old book someplace. I'm not sure where it is, but
Madam Chair, if I may, I think part of the conversation was around, you now have the option to adjust the time as needed. It is. So part of the
the change in the language was that the chair has the ability, the discretion to change the time for public comment. So and so the book gives us that ability for you to be able to look and see, and we can compare what's on the agenda for the night to know if we need to adjust that time accordingly. So that's kind of the idea behind it. That was the spirit of the conversation.
So this would be something you would formalize in the policy committee, or we would just make it a
It's
practice?
essentially an administrative procedure, and so
Okay.
once the practice is established, it would become the expectation. And as the chair, Dave's
Okay.
right, it's your purview in terms
Yeah,
of
I
if
mean-
you want to adjust. We had talked about that, through the past conversations about when there's lengthy public comment, how it could detract from the board's ability to do business based on what's the agenda. You could have
Right.
public comment on a particular issue that could be, if everybody was given 5 hours and there were 50 people, you'll never get to the board business. And so depending on what the amount of people, it allows you to keep public comment to a time that it still allows the board business to occur at a reasonable time as well.
Well, I know it's the purview of the chair to be able to adjust that, but we just redid the policy to give everybody 5 minutes, regardless of the number of people who show up for the meeting.
Well, the policy also, there's another line in the policy that says that the chair
Yeah,
has the ability to adjust. So yes, they have 5 minutes, but there's also this additional step that says that you can adjust that.
Okay. Well, we can talk, because I want to know what the value is to the public, what the value is to the board,
It keeps it a nice flow.
Okay.
Okay.
You've had experience with it. Yeah.
Yes.
I think the other thought process behind it, from my experience with other boards of education, is that new business is at the end of our agenda. And sometimes that takes conversation. You don't know how much conversation it's going to take.
Okay.
And so if public comment takes up the bulk of your business meeting, when really it is a business meeting, especially for agenda items that may not even be on the agenda, it prohibits the board from being able to do their business in a reasonable amount of time at a reasonable hour.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay.
Need a vote?
Yep.
We need to vote on that?
Yes. But no, we need.
So we have a motion.
Oh, we have the motion. We haven't voted. Yes. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. I just wrote all because I wrote all. All right. We're down to new business. Science, kindergarten units, first reading. If you have any questions regarding that, please feel free to reach out to Mr. Balszewski. Next on our agenda is the ratification of the Nutmeg Independent Public Safeties Unit, NIPSU, Southington Secretarial and Food Service Workers contract.
Move to approve the Nutmeg Independent Public Safety Employees Union, NIPSU, Southington Secretarial and Food Service Workers, 3-year contract, July 1, 2021 to June 30, 2024.
Second.
Any discussion, any questions? Anyone? Do we have to do a roll call for this, or can we just, no? No? No. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Contract passes. And now we have the review and adoption of the 2022-23 Board of Education operating budget. Mr. Medancy?
So, thank you, Madam Chair. So I know we had touched upon briefly the potential of being able to bring an additional reduction tonight before a formal vote was made to my initial proposed budget. And I'm happy to report that after the settling of the contract with the Secretarial and Food Service Workers, we're able to bring you a reduction of $116,529. That reduction comes after we take action and have added in the rental of facilities that was discussed last week and had consensus, as well as the student activities increase for robotics. So the final budget number that I bring to you this evening is $104,618,146 for an increase of 4%.
Mr. Balszewski?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2022 to 23 operating budget in the amount of $104,618,146.
Okay. Any discussion? I would like to personally thank our administrators for their work. I know this was not easy. It never is. But you brought it to the finish line, and we thank you for your efforts and your work on this.
you know, the entire administrative team, they start this in August, September,
September,
basically. But, you know, Ms. Hill, Mrs. Mallet, Mrs. Pasmano, Mrs. Poon, everybody just gathering lots of information, synthesized a lot of information. And this year I felt really prepared it in a very easy to understand way, and made some nice changes to the way we've done it in the past. And they deserve all the credit.
Thank you. Roll call? No, just right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Didn't think so. Okay. Okay. Now we're down to 9. Wait a second. We're all over the place.
9E.
9E. Yes, that would be you.
All right, 9E, I'd like to make a motion to approve the unaffiliated compensation for retired teachers who substitute to $135 per day.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Hearing none. Mr. O'Shana?
Move to approve student expulsion 2021-22-8 as stipulated by the administration.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. O'Shana?
Move to approve student expulsion 2021-22-10 as stipulated by the administration.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Okay. And now 9H
I mean, there again,
is
like,
your,
right. So
So all you had after Mr. Petrovsky's comment was a motion to add it to the agenda. There are currently no motions on the floor right now.
okay,
So as an agenda item, you can either discuss it or a motion can be introduced.
okay,
I'd like to,
okay.
introduce a discussion to at least try and figure something out that we can all get behind. That's apolitical in nature and that it, again, restores the direction of what we're able to do as a town.
So may I ask a question? So we're talking about a resolution that you want to send to the governor, is this correct? Joe? And in this resolution, we as a board would be asking the governor to do what? Ask him, first of all, are we going to ask him about the mask mandate, which is nothing we can really do about that, so we know that, okay? So are you going to be looking to ask him what his plans are? Or are you going to ask, I mean, I have a problem with the resolution, okay?
Sure.
Personally. Because I believe that we as a Board of Education have no jurisdiction in not following what the governor is telling us to do. I'm not saying that we agree with everything that he's telling us what to do, but I don't know how this resolution would be worded, and I don't think it's something that we personally as a Board of Education should be doing. That's my personal opinion about it. So what do you think you would be saying in it? Give me an idea.
So I'm not looking to be specific about mask mandates. I'm not looking to be specific than any other aspect that I don't believe that he should be asking for continued emergency
The emergency
authorization,
powers you want to take.
and
you don't want
that would force all of the mandates currently in place to actually be discussed on by the legislatures.
Okay, then I ask you, isn't that up to the General Assembly to determine whether the governor gets continuation of his emergency powers? Isn't that something that the General Assembly in Hartford, it wouldn't be something that we would have anything to do with, right?
But it does reflect that, again, that we're
not for it.
That we're not for emergency mandates. That, again, I think that we have an administrative team, we have a new health director that are very capable of utilizing data and working with, I'm not saying not to follow recommendations and things like that. What I'm saying is that we actually do a collaborative effort while we're mitigating things through the continued. I mean, I wouldn't call it a health crisis. Still, again, a health concern. Making sure that we're doing the appropriate things for our students, and not, I always go back to when we essentially had to quarantine a whole entire lunch wave, right? It wasn't necessarily the right thing to do. And we felt that we were sort of pigeonholed into a particular way of doing it because of those mandates. What I'm asking for, Terry, is nothing political in nature. Again, regardless of my feelings about masks or whatever, this is more of, we're 2 years in, we've just went through another spike, and, again, we were able to get through it very effectively thanks to the administration and, the contact tracing and everything else that we've done. And, all I'm saying is that this board can essentially say, please, thank you so much for your service. And I mean that wholeheartedly. And, I don't think that there's a need for continued emergency power.
Okay, so Joe, may I continue this?
Yes.
When I think about that, and I'm not saying I disagree with you, I just don't think it is the responsibility of a Board of Education, maybe even a town council, to be addressing the governor in that manner. I don't think that is what our due diligence as a Board of Education is.
I disagree with you because
I know you disagree with me, and
somebody has
that's
to push
fine,
back.
Joe. We can be cordial and
agreed,
civil and disagree. And I hear the parents, and I can understand where many of them are coming from, and I have grandchildren and had children, and I understand all of that. But I don't believe that it is something that the Board of Education should be involved in.
Okay. Can I make a suggestion?
Of course.
Let me make a suggestion, because trying to formulate something here and now is virtually going to be impossible. But
right.
Why don't we, I don't want to say table this, but why don't we say that we will get together with the administration and talk about something that asks for an exit plan. What is our exit plan? How are we going to implement the exit plan? And
what exit plan, Colin?
Well, the exit plan to get local control back, to get our control back. What is the governor planning to give? When is he planning to give us control back? And what support he is planning to give us when we get local control back? Because there's going to be things we're going to need
when
to know.
When you say local control, are you talking?
I'm talking about the Southington Health District being.
But we're not in the business of health.
I know we're not. I know, but what I'm asking, excuse me, this is discussion among the board, not the public. What I'm saying is that in order to formulate something, we have to come to some type of consensus. We haven't written anything yet, and I would like to see whether or not, along with the administration, because quite frankly, I don't know what the needs are going to be of the administration when we get local control back. I'd like to be able to say, we can sit down with the administration and talk about this, formulate a letter to send to the governor. Would that be?
I mean, the concern that I have is that we're up for the reevaluation of the emergency order.
Mm-hmm.
The purpose of me bringing this to the board is essentially for us to be able to say that, again, thank you for your service.
Mm-hmm.
We don't believe that there's an emergency situation that needs to continue, and that, again, we can make these decisions with our own administration, our own health director. Again, we're in the business of health, whether we like it or not, because of the types of students that we take. We take care of students that are medically complex,
Yeah,
and that's the burden of our Board of Education, is to make sure that every child has an education, right?
Oh yes, Joe. Without a
But
doubt,
let's get back to.
I don't think we're in the business of. I don't think a Board of Education should be in the business of making local decisions that our health director should be making. I don't think, or I guess our health,
Right.
yeah, we have a health director now that,
I agree with you, but again, that person doesn't make the decisions right now. It's the governor
Governor,
and
right.
his appointed staff that essentially gives the marching orders to then be followed out on the locality level.
Okay, hold on a second. Mr. Darrenowski, you had your hand up?
I think, I don't disagree totally in your approach, but I think we're addressing it to the wrong group. This should be, if anything should be sent, it should be sent to the legislature, because they're the ones who control the governor.
right.
They're giving him the power to enact what he's doing.
Right.
And I think that's what's coming up in a couple of weeks.
They're the ones that will,
So they're the ones who are going to be reflecting the current condition as to whether to grant him the authority to continue.
But so would it be fair then to ask for him not to, I guess, he's already submitted that he wants continued emergency power.
Right.
So then would it be feasible then that we as a board send a letter then to the legislature?
That would be more appropriate than sending it to the governor.
Okay.
The governor has already said he's not going to enact unless he gets approval from the legislature.
legislature.
So then, I mean, again, as long as we're sending some sort of proposal, some sort of resolution to Hartford to let them know that enough, again, like it's.
What's
we-
it, when,
we need to
when,
worry
what's
about
the exit strategy?
Southington's, I don't,
And when are
He
we
has
getting
no
our
exit
control?
strategy.
Well, we need an exit strategy. When are we getting our control back is what we're looking for. Hold on a second. Sean, you wanted to?
Yeah, I just, in the here and now, he's asking for an agenda item to be discussed of what we can come up with, what we can codify, and what we can put in writing. And we can talk about what's going to be in that document, who we're sending it to, when we're sending it. And it's my understanding that 2/3 of the board would have to be on board with this, correct?
Well, that's what we're
Okay,
talking about.
so-
Yeah, that's what we're talking about now.
Right. But we can make it an agenda item and we can talk about it and then we can bring it, whatever we codify in writing in our discussion, then we can bring it to a vote. And
Yeah, that's,
if we have 2/3 support, then we'll send it on its way. And if we don't have 2/3 support, then
it won't go.
it won't go.
That's, yes.
Well, we already have 2/3 vote. It's on the agenda.
Yeah, we're
It's on the
talking,
agenda,
we're
so
talking
it's-
about it
Right.
now. We're
It's
talking.
just on the agenda.
I'd like to know who would be writing this.
That's what we have to
document.
get to is who is writing and what are we saying in it? So that's,
My recommendation, if
Okay.
I can.
okay.
I don't think it'll be done tonight.
No,
We'll
it's not going to
here
be done
till
tonight.
tomorrow morning.
Right.
Somebody should put something together, submit it to the board, for review. We can discuss it at the next meeting.
Okay.
when does the next meeting and how does that jive with?
February, what's our
In February.
next meeting? February?
February 24th.
Okay.
And when is the vote
Before that.
before that? So
Yeah.
I don't find that
Well,
being acceptable.
we as a board have to vote on on something, on a document, which we don't have.
Right.
We
So
have nothing to
So
vote
we
on.
call-
can we call a special meeting?
Yeah, we could. But we don't have anything to vote on.
Well,
So
what
if
the-
we don't,
So what I would propose then is, again, we fashion something and then we hold a special meeting to discuss it. We can, and then to have a formal vote.
okay.
It's part of the fiction something. What?
That's a separate.
I know.
The decisions made by the governor have directly affected our students, our children, our staff.
Oh yeah, I know.
So again, it is pertinent to this board because again, we had we oversee policy and
I know,
curriculum,
Joe, but-
correct? And we had no weigh in to any of those rules or policy, if you will, that we had to follow. And again, like there's reasonable things that we could have learned from and we could have made changes, but because we were following, again, very, I guess, not vague, but essentially things that
We disagreed with, Joe, that we weren't happy
Right.
with, you know, all of that kind of stuff. I understand all that. I just have a problem with usurping our authority as a Board of Education to even do this. Okay, that's just me. You have your two-thirds vote to do it. So, you know, call a special meeting, have somebody write something up. I would be against it.
Okay.
And I want you to understand the reasons why. I don't think it's in our purview to do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. And just understand, just because we have a 2/3 vote right now to discuss it and come up with a written resolution doesn't mean that what is actually in writing, you're going to have a 2/3 vote for.
I know,
So
I know, Sean.
that,
I understand.
hence the reason for a special meeting and a vote,
Okay. So,
to take action as an entire board.
all right. So what we have to,
So you cannot work on it outside of a board meeting as an entire board. So my recommendation would be for you to, essentially ask or appoint, ask for either 3 volunteers or appoint 3 volunteers to draft something up that would be brought to a special meeting.
okay.
And if Mr. Rachevsky's suggestion is that it is truly nonpartisan, then I would consider who you ask.
Okay. Okay. So I am assuming you would like to be part of that? Mr. O'Shana?
I'll join.
Okay. Mr.
I'll join.
Williams?
Yep.
Okay.
Great.
So, this committee, so to speak, you're charged with coming up with a bipartisan letter, resolution, I don't know what you want to call it, to be sent to Hartford, to the legislators, to say we'd
When
like
do they meet? Do you know? Is it next week?
their
Do they go in
February.
session? Does anybody know?
Yes, first week of February.
Yeah.
First week in February.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next week.
Next week.
Okay.
yeah.
And the FOI Commission does still allow meetings to be virtual until April 20th. So for a special meeting, seeing that I know many of you have work schedules that take you different places. Like I'm looking across the days here. If need be, the special meeting could be done virtually so that people can just log on since it is the only agenda item that can be put on a special meeting. And we would have to post and notice it appropriately, and I'll make sure we do that through the policies.
Mrs. Clark, if I may say, there are not very many parents that are left. Just so they know that we have listened to what they've had to say. There's no question that we listened to it, and understand their concerns of many of the things that have come down from Hartford. But our hands have been tied. Our hands have been tied. They've made excellent points, and whatever. But our hands as a Board of Education, we have to follow what is in our Board of Education book of what we can and cannot do.
Agreed.
And those were things that we could not do.
I agree.
And that's very important. I see shaking heads and not listening to that, but those really are the things that we can and cannot do as a Board of Education. And that has to be understood.
Okay, so, gentlemen, you can, and then clear it through Mr. Medancy.
Yep.
Schedule it, and then we will, once you're done with your work, get back and we'll schedule a special meeting. If need be, we'll do it over Zoom.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
If need be.
At your dining room table.
And my dining room table, whatever.
That's where I
Okay?
go, that's where I go, don't judge me.
Move to adjourn.
Yes.
I was just gonna ask you.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Or like, piece of paper.